On Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services and the most senior U.S. health official, gave a speech riddled with scientific inaccuracies, misinformation, and lies about autism. I'm Laura DiDio, reporting and narrating for Crystal, STEM Now's anthropologist, STEM education researcher, and a political activist. Kennedy's speech was supposed to be about the increased rates of autism found by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Instead, Kennedy turned it into an ableist rant infused with modern-day eugenics.
These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
Ableism is the discrimination in favor of able-bodied people. Eugenics uses false, racist, and ableist premises and practices, claiming they improve the human race. For example, eugenicists believe that intelligence and other social behaviors, like promiscuity, are inherited traits. Eugenicists say these so-called undesirable traits can be bred out of the population via selective breeding and forced sterilization. Eugenics became popular in the 19th century. It gained widespread credibility because its supporters included some of the wealthiest and most influential people and organizations in the U.S. That includes the Carnegie Institute and the Rockefeller Foundation. Eugenics laws remained on the books in many U.S. states well into the 1970s. Laws in almost every state, particularly in the South, allowed individuals with intellectual disabilities to be institutionalized and sterilized without their knowledge or consent. Black women, Native American, and Native Alaskan women were especially targeted. Untold thousands of these women were sterilized without their knowledge or consent. Hitler greatly admired eugenics. Hitler incorporated eugenics and American eugenic legislation into his racial superiority policies in Mein Kampf, his Nazi manifesto. Franz Boas, the father of North American anthropology, opposed eugenics. Boas published many articles debunking the scientific basis of eugenics. Boas suffered reprisals because of his anti-eugenic stance. Boas had a bullseye on his back. His role at Columbia University was marginalized. He was derided as un-American. Boas's salary was cut. He lost funding. Boas was forbidden from teaching undergraduate male students. Boas was, however, allowed to teach women students from Barnard College. Fortunately, Boas had a wealthy patron, a Barnard College alumna, and he was able to weather the storm. Boas was not alone in being persecuted. The careers of many of his students, some of the most celebrated 20th century women anthropologists, also suffered. They included Margaret Mead, Ruth Benedict, and Zora Neale Hurston. In 2025, Kennedy is attempting to make eugenics great again. Kennedy claims there's an autism epidemic. Kennedy claims that autism is a preventable disease. This is patently false. Autism is not a chronic or infectious disease. Autism is a disorder. Scientists have not yet pinpointed the cause of autism, but studies indicate genetics does play a role. Scientists have also not ruled out environmental causes. However, it is clear that the higher autism rates are linked to better diagnoses and increased screening. Yet Kennedy has repeatedly dismissed genetics or the increased screening in favor of environmental factors. Unspoken is his false belief that autism is caused by vaccines. On April 10th, 2025, Kennedy claimed that the cause of the autism epidemic will be known by September. This is ridiculous. Scientific results are not predictable. They rarely adhere to specified. As we told you in STEM Now's episode 2, Kennedy hired David Geyer to supervise a study on the link between vaccines and autism. This study's results have already been scientifically discredited. Also noteworthy, Geyer was fined for practicing medicine without a license and harming autistic children in his clinics back in the early 2000s. Kennedy's latest speech evoked fury from the autistic community. The Autistic Self-Advocacy Network accused Kennedy of cherry-picking the autism data and attacking autistic people to, quote, undermine the health and civil rights of people with disabilities and other marginalized communities, unquote. On April 21st, Jay Bhattacharya, the director of the National Institutes of Health, said that NIH would establish an autism registry. This registry would keep private medical data on autistic people in the US, and researchers would have access to all of this data. There was outrage from the autistic community and their supporters about this registry, partly due to the distrust of Kennedy's unethical allies, causing NIH to quickly backtrack. Now NIH says it won't create the registry. Instead, NIH claims it will link researchers to existing databases on autistic individuals. Bhattacharya said that grant funding will be awarded in September. This conflicts with Kennedy's earlier promise that he'd know the cause of autism by September. At this point, it's very likely Kennedy will award these funds to his unethical allies rather than allowing scientific experts to submit proposals and ethically compete for the funds according to NIH's own policies. The attacks on autistic people are in line with the attacks on the deaf community and the ASL interpreters from self-professed white supremacist Nazi supporters. Eugenics is back in full force in 21st century American society, thanks to the Trump administration policies and its supporters. We end this episode by quoting this statement from the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network that the Trump administration is, quote, treating us like a disease or a burden on society instead of living people who exist and have our own thoughts and our own ideas about our disabilities. This weaponizes pity and fear to deny our basic rights. Claims that we are incapable of working, creating art, or forming relationships all serve as excuses to deny us the very supports we need to thrive in our communities. This is all a smokescreen to try and get people to think that this administration cares about us. All while they cut the services we rely on to survive, cut funding to the people who enforce the civil rights of disabled students, and try to dismantle the agencies that allow us to live freely in the community. To learn more about autism and eugenics, there are links in the video description below from authoritative sources. This story shows the power of political activism. It was outrage from the autistic community, its supporters, and the medical community that caused NIH to back down from creating the Autism Registry. To learn more about autism and eugenics from authoritative sources, please refer to the links in the video description below. I encourage you to be an ally. Contact both your elected Democratic and Republican representatives to express support for the autistic community. Talk to others in your community. Network. Discuss how their health is negatively impacted by Kennedy's decision. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this channel, like and comment on this video. Thank you.